The clipper stall. Clipper stalls move the stands at the center of the footbag universe. And so today I just wanted to review the movement prerequisites that we require in order to perform a good clipper stall. And that way, if you're just learning the clipper stall, or if you're looking to improve the quality of your clipper stall, that you'll be able to identify the individual movements that you can train in order to allow that behavior to emerge. So we're going to break this down into open chain and closed chain movements. So open chain is when the foot is not connected to the ground, and closed chain is when it is connected to the ground. And so with the closed chain, overall, we're trying to create more stability, so the movements will be smaller. And with the open chain, it will be mobility, and the movements will be larger. So first stop is open chain knee flexion. And this is going to range somewhere between 45 and 90 degrees, depending on the point in the clipper stall. After that, we're going to have open chain hip external rotation. And so this is when the hip is turning out to the lateral side. And so once we flex the knee, we externally rotate the hip, and we start to bring the foot into what we call the crossbody position. So after that, we're also going to have closed chain hip external rotation. So we're going to be rotating externally both sides of the hip. But what happens with the closed chain is it's actually going to start to tilt the pelvis back, and that's going to bring us even further into that crossbody position. So knee flexion, hip external rotation, and then closed chain hip external rotation will bring us even further into that crossbody position. After that, we're going to look at knee internal rotation. So the knee does not just flex and extend, but it also rotates. And you can see that by looking at the tibia, and the tibia will rotate internally and externally in relation to the knee. This is a very, very important movement to make sure that we train, and it's very intrinsic to many, many footbag movements. So once we've flexed on the open chain the knee, externally rotated the hip, closed chain hip external rotation, now we have that internal rotation of the knee. You can see the platform for the bag to be delayed on really starts to be created there. After that, we're going to have inversion of the ankle with a little bit of plantar flexion. So plantar flexion is when the foot is pointed down, and inversion is when the foot is tilted in towards the midline. So with inversion and plantar flexion, that's going to even further create that surface. And after that, we're also going to have closed chain knee flexion. So closed chain knee flexion is going to create an even bigger surface behind the knee in order to create more space for the clipper stall. And also, the further that our knee flexes, the further that our tibia can rotate. So you can see here that when my knee is not flexed at all, I actually can't really rotate the tibia that much. And also, this is the only time that your patella is actually highly mobile on the knee. And it's because the patella is there to lock your tibia in place at whatever point of rotation that it's at to create stability during that movement. But when it's fully extended, it's locked in place, and so your patella can be free to move. But as soon as you start to flex that knee, patella locks in place, and it's there to create stability for whatever point of rotation that your knee is at. And the more that you flex your knee, the more rotation you can get out of it. So when we're in our crossbody position, where we've flexed the knee, externally rotated both sides of the hip, and then we've internally rotated the knee. Now when we flex this knee, we're creating even more space for this knee to flex further. And as we flex further, we can internally rotate the knee further. And then when we invert and plantar flex the ankle, we get a nice platform in order for that clipper to emerge. Now, very important as well, that's all of the lower body movements, but also the spine needs to move very well. So in many footbag movements, and almost all of them, the spine has to be very mobile. And so you can see, because we need to be tilting back into this position to be able to see and look down at the clipper stall, we're actually going to have rotation of the spine as well as lateral flexion of the spine. And so we need to be able to have a mobile spine and also create stability in all of those positions. So you're also going to have rotation and lateral flexion. And we have to remember that every vertebra of the spine is its own joint, and you're getting millimeters of movement at a time out of each vertebrae. And so it's not just the spine, it's each vertebrae of the spine. And you're going to get a gradual production of movement as each vertebra gives its own little bit of movement along the way. So you're going to eventually get more movement by the time you get to the top of the spine. That's where a lot of the movement is created. It's all of the vertebrae that connect together. So, in review, we have open chain knee flexion, open chain hip external rotation, closed chain hip external rotation, closed chain knee flexion, open chain knee internal rotation, open chain ankle inversion plantar flexion, spine, rotation, and lateral flexion. That's the clipper stall. It seems very complicated, but when we break it down, we can really isolate which movements, so you can test for yourself, okay, which one of these individual components might I not be that strong at? And then you can input training into those components in order to allow the total behavior to emerge. There's the clipper stall.